So before I start, I would like to welcome our esteemed speakers for today, Mr. Anupreet Singh, who is Director of Sales at Slintel, and Mr. Prakhar Jain, who is Senior Director at Whatfix. I'll leave room for their detailed intro for the later part of the session. But let me quickly walk you through what Headstart is and what is this session all about, and what are the things that we at Headstart do. While I believe most of you might already be very aware of what Headstart is, and this is not the first time that you're joining in. Is it the first time? Maybe you can use the chat box. Let's keep it an interactive session. You can keep putting in your questions if you have any in the chat box, and just giving us a heads up if there is anything that you would want us to include within the course of the session. So if this is your first time in for Headstart, then this intro is about you. If this is your repeat time with Headstart, then we might want to give you a brief on what are the updates that we have covered up in the last few months. Jumping on, Headstart is India's largest early stage startup ecosystem. We are a Section 8 non-for-profit organization entirely run by volunteers. So all of us who are there in the call today managing things are actually volunteers with Headstart. We have our day jobs, we have our colleges, we have our own startups that we run, and then we spare out some time on day ends and weekends just to give it back to the community. We love community. We have taken so much benefit from Headstart, and that's what we want to give back to the community now. So Headstart has almost around 100 plus volunteers right now in 30 plus cities in India and a couple of cities in Europe, and now we are expanding to other geographies as well internationally. We were founded back in 2008, and till then, like, it has been almost 14 years. We have covered across 30 cities in India. Germany, Finland too are being covered. If I talk about the number of startups that we have impacted, so the number has been more than 15K. 1.8K events that we do, and with over 200 meetups that we do each year. And now with these numbers, you can just think about the number of connections that we enable within the ecosystem. Like in the last 14 years, we have had a chance to impact 50K plus community members. We are supporting around 150 plus incubators pan India. There are multiple venture capitals that we work with. So almost if I just club it. So yeah, and in the last 14 years, we have seen around 500 people volunteering with us from time to time. So most of the people who volunteer with us remain with us for a good amount of time, 5-6 years, and then even after they move out for their professional journeys, we have seen people coming back after a couple of years. So that's what Headstart is. You never can leave Headstart and always remain an integral part of Headstart. So this is a quick graph of the cities that we are present in and internationally how we are expanding. So let me take a quick moment here. So if any one of you who is a part of these cities or want to join Headstart, irrespective of these cities, or if you're from some other city, then we are more than welcome. Please reach out to any one of us who is a volunteer, or reach out to me or Rishabh for ease, and we'll let you know the process. Touching up upon the initiatives that we do, these are some initiatives, not all, that we do. For example, SaaS Club today, which you are a part of, is one of our initiative. The most prominent initiatives that we have are Startup Saturdays, that are once in a month weekly meetups, generally done on second Saturdays. We have reduced the number of Startup Saturdays post-COVID. Pre-COVID, it was a mandate to have one Startup Saturday each month. So for example, Delhi city has done around 150 Startup Saturdays in last 12 years, not considering the COVID part. So that has been the impact that we are driving with. And so many other initiatives meant for different startups with different at different stages. For example, if you are an early stage startups, there are some initiatives meant for you. If you are a late stage startup, if you have raised a couple of rounds and looking forward to scale, then there are some initiatives meant for you. If you're looking forward to raise your first round, then there are some initiatives meant for you. So different startup needs, different initiatives, but the idea is same, that we want to support startup ecosystem, and that's what we are doing. A glance of a few of our speakers who have represented within Headstart in past. Success stories. So since Headstart has been helping a lot of startups, so a few success stories: Flipkart, Zomato, Ola, all had been a part of Startup Saturdays or Headstart at some part in time in their early days. And this is not just three, but the number continues to so many. So just some example of the startups that we have touched up in some way or another in the past. Some of them even have been a volunteer with Headstart as well in their early days of startups. We rely a lot on partnerships as well. So we aim to pick up the best of the institutional support and give it to the startup communities. So that's where we go and partner with a lot of government agencies, a lot of private agencies, and make sure that the benefit that they are having, we can route that benefit to the grassroots level. Everyone may not have reach, but they may have resources. We just want to make sure that the resources are given to the community of Headstart community and the people who are a part of Headstart community. So we have been very active in partnering with different state governments and central government, including Niti Aayog, Startup India, Invest India, and so on. Some of the corporate private partnerships that I was, if I talk, then Microsoft, Intuitive, DigitalOcean, and more partners are coming up. We are now partnering specifically for SaaS Club as well. So for SaaS startups, we are now partnering with service providers who are relevant for SaaS startups. And once you join SaaS Club, you will get to know more about it. Then we also partner with a lot of incubators and accelerators. So this is a list of just some. We are now working with most of the AIMs in different universities and most of the private incubators as well. So quickly, list of social media handles. So if you want to get updated on what's happening or the new events that are coming up, please feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We keep regularly posting about our initiatives and industry updates, ecosystem updates on these handles. To stay updated, please follow us. If you have any queries, if you want to reach out to us, then a quick address would be delhi@headstart.in. You can just write us here and someone will get back to you. As I said, if you guys are touched up upon what we do, if that's impressing, or if you find yourself working with us, if you find yourself working and contributing back to the ecosystem, then this is the form that you can fill, bit.ly/volunteer_hs. You can take a screenshot if you want. Just fill this form and we'll get back to you. Again, if you have any queries or if you want to have a one-on-one with anyone, so you can reach out to Rishabh or you can reach out to Mukul. Rishabh is currently leading the Delhi vertical within Headstart and also leads the SaaS Club, and Mukul co-leads the Delhi vertical and the SaaS Club today. Now, quickly coming back to the session for today, I'll hand it over to Rishabh now for taking it over. Rishabh, can you please introduce our esteemed speakers for today and also take the session forward? Thank you so much.
Sure, definitely. Thank you, Ashish. And I hope there are quite a few folks who mentioned who are joining in for the first time. I have mentioned a link within the chat how you can be a part of the SaaS Club. There are currently about 70 to 75 startups. The idea behind SaaS Club is to go deep, build a community in which everyone can learn from each other, because everyone faces similar kind of problems. So maybe not even mentors, the peer group itself can help you out. That's there. And then with the future, we are also planning to do a lot of work around incubators and accelerators, helping startups grow. The knowledge sessions, playbooks, and mentor sessions will continue. They're currently running as well, just like we have gathered here, for a playbook session today. This will go on there, but eventually we do want to diverge into incubation, acceleration, and then fundraise as well, because that's where we can easily help you out with very tangible outcomes. So now, coming back to the session for which we are here today. So first of all, I would like to welcome our first speaker, which is Prakhar Jain. Prakhar is the first employee at Whatfix, which is now 600 million, startup backed by the likes of SoftBank, Sequoia, and much more. Prakhar today leads a team of more than 60 sales folks. He was the first sales guy at Whatfix. He's the guy who has been there building it from ground up. So I think he's one of the perfect fits for this kind of a session where we are trying to address GTM and sales concerns for startups. We welcome you today, Prakhar. Also, one thing, Prakhar is today's, he has detected COVID positive about 3 days back, but he has still agreed to join in. Thank you for that. And yeah, we won't like to trouble you much, but yeah, Looking forward to learn from you, Prakhar. So I'll welcome the second speaker for the session, Anupreet. Anupreet is currently the director of sales at Slintel. He's known as the ideas guy. He has very insightful and ingenious ideas around sales, and he has been the guy who has built, Slintel. Slintel recently got acquired by 6sense, which has recently raised $200 million and is now 5.2 stands at $5.2 billion. We welcome you, Anupreet. We are looking forward to learn from you.
Hey, thanks, Rishabh, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this. In the chat, I've requested everyone to just give us a high level of whether you're B2B or B2C, SaaS or non-SaaS, India or global, in terms of the markets that you sell to. It'll be great if we can get a sense of that, so that we can make sure that the content is relevant. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining in, and thanks a lot for the introduction, Rishabh. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks. Prakhar, I guess now you can unmute yourself, right?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I was trying to do that then. Thanks, Ishab, for having me, and thanks Headstart for conducting this. Thanks everybody who was able to take out time on a Saturday afternoon as well. It's great to have you guys here, and I think Anupreet's question is very relevant in chat, so that we can custom tailor the information in the session today accordingly.
Yeah, in fact, right before starting the session, I do have a couple of polls as well, which will give us this understanding. Before that, Mukul, can you please make Prakhar and Anupreet the co-hosts so that they can see the the poll results as well. All right, we have 109 folks here. We have received 64 responses. If the rest of them, if rest of you guys could just finish responding, we can then end the poll. All right, we have a fair split. Most of them are at early traction, where the product is launched, but they are getting some early traction. Then the second is they have an MVP or they're at a scaling stage. And then, okay, there are about 16 again in pilot. So fair split. Okay, when we talk about goals, okay, a lot of people have to convert their POCs to paying customers, and they have to acquire their first 25. So majorly, what we're trying to cover today. Let's start. Okay, so Prakhar, Anupreet, let's dive into the first thing that we have for today. Like the problem statement that people have shared as well, let's start with acquiring the early POCs. We will go with the assumption that we have certain level of product ready, so that we can go after the first POCs or something at the backend ready. And let's go deep dive into assuming it's a new startup, how would you go about getting the first few POCs and assuming you have nothing right now?
So I can go first. So broadly, I think since most of the teams are in this stage of acquiring some pilot customers, some of them are building probably sales teams right now, and mostly I'm assuming that it's pretty much founder driven, with the stage at which most of the founders here are. I think the first bit of the puzzle that you need to solve is your ICP analysis. By ICP, for anyone for the ones who are not from the sales background, ICP refers to ideal customer profile. So you need to do that modeling really well, so that you're understanding the kind of audience that you want to close. You might be able to close like a lot of low hanging fruits here and there, but my advice would be to try to identify your ICP first and try to close the first, if you're, let's say, at 0 right now, the first 10 customers from your ICP to the extent possible. This will ensure that any kind of feedback that comes to you from your existing first 10 customers are relevant to the extent possible. You don't want to close customers that are irrelevant and then get feedback that will not be impactful for your product, because we're very emotional about our first 10 customers. We don't want to lose them. And if the feedback is around things that you otherwise don't want to build, you might still end up building it. And at this stage, you probably would have two to three engineers at max. So their bandwidth is very precious. So to begin with, I think we need to understand our ICP. Once you understand your ICP, I think doing a TAM analysis, where TAM refers to the total addressable market. I like to call it the target addressable market. Is something that you also should be very clear about. By which I mean you should be understanding one, what is your total addressable market, but also what is the target that you have for your TAM for the next 3 months or the next 6 months, and ensure that you're only going after that particular market. So one, the persona; second, the market needs to be pretty well defined. And if after you do the ICP, there's more than 2 personas that come across, so by I'll give you an example as well, just so that for everyone to be on the same page. So after you do the ICP analysis, if you have more than 2 people, and after you do the TAM, if there are more than 2,000 people, that there's something, 2,000 companies. So after the TAM, if you have more than 2,000 companies, and after the ICP analysis, if you have more than 2 personas, that there's something wrong with your matrix that you're building around ICP TAM. So my suggestion to all of you would be that after this session, the first thing that you should do is that understand what is my total addressable or the target addressable market, and then find out accounts in that target addressable market, and not more than 2,000. And when you do the ICP analysis, try to understand what are the personas that can benefit from my product, and try to find the 2 best personas and not more than 2. So when you have this 2 into 2,000 kind of universe to go after, that is where I think your first few customers, maybe the first 200 customers, should be coming from, and not outside of this, unless you are deviating from your existing product and building something else for another audience, or rescoping all of that. But I think you should begin from there. But we'll go to the next steps from here. Prakhar, I'll let you chime in and add anything if you want to this particular thing.
A quick question. I missed it. ICP. What did it stood for?
Ideal customer profile. So let's say you're building a product that's in the marketing tech category. So your ideal customer profile in most likelihood will be the VP of marketing. But when you do a deeper dive, you might realize that, hey, someone in the demand gen side of things will benefit from my product, right? So you can go as niche as you can, but the final persona who will be the deciding factor on whether this product is ideal or not for them to go with is probably what the ideal profile is. And then further, I think some questions on the chat are talking about users, are kind of asking if it's the same with user profile. Just to clarify, I would say it's more so a buyer persona more than a user persona. Users are one of the buyers because they're influencing the decision, but in the ICP analysis, you need to understand who will be involved, who all will be involved in making that decision. So right from your user to the person who will sign the check for this particular transaction. So you need to map out who should you be reaching out to in the entire matrix, and is your product a bottoms up product, by which I mean you need to attract users your way, and then the decision makers will be looped in? Or do you think your product is such a big decision for an organization that you need to follow a top down approach and reach out to the top of the hierarchy in that particular department, and then come towards the bottom from there? So that is the other analysis that you need to do. So reaching out, let's say our product is marketing tech, reaching out to the VP marketing might not always help, right? It's not the most obvious choice for you to go after on LinkedIn, is what I'm trying to say. Let's say your product is in the category of $500 per month, and people, let's say we're reaching out to a company like Oracle, which has probably 5,000 users for your product. So if you can make some noise and make your product available in 200, 300, 400 of these 5,000 possible users, they will do the selling internally themselves, and they will be able to get you a foot in the door. So you don't necessarily need to reach out to the VP of sales all the time for your product. It also depends on the size of the product. I mean, the market size of the product, and the kind of average deal sizes that you're closing with that product. So I hope I answered that question. Prakhar, I think you were looking to add something to it.
Yeah, I'll probably just take a step back and give a more myopic view, just based on very early stage of the company, because sometimes you're still trying to identify. One is like Anupreet gave some nuggets around how to get to the ICP. See, in more layman terms, if you actually look at the ideal customer profile, when you build the product, you had some problem statements in mind on why you're building it. So just go granular and understand that who in the organization would this be more relevant to. If you're selling to startups, which are 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people companies, who is that person in that startup who would benefit the most from the product that you've built? That's what Anupreet is trying to say when he actually talks about ICP. Now, if you look at, some of the larger companies, Sorry, was there a question? Okay, so to the point that Anupreet was making, that if you actually want to target and figure out what's the total addressable market, while you're trying to get that, you should also figure out that who are some of the early adopters of your product who have already come along with you, and see if you're able to get references from them, because they would have similar colleagues in other companies who are actually probably having a similar sort of a problem statement. That's one way to go about it. Try to find out where are some of the similar personas who are actually hanging out, whether it's LinkedIn communities, whether there are specific, if you sell into the HR persona, for example. When I say persona, it could be, it's a broad terminology that I'm using. It could be, when I say HR, it's a function. So you could be selling into HR IT, you could be selling into director HR, you could be selling into CHRO, anybody. So when you try and figure out the problem statement that you have identified, the value proposition for that problem statement to these personas, then you figure out where are these people hanging out, and then you actually go ahead targeting them. See, the first few people become very relevant to your business, also because they kind of will become your outsourced product managers in a way. And the reason for that is they will give you a lot of intel of the market. Can you guys still hear me? There's some background noise from my end. Is that too loud?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, though there was some noise that was coming in, but I think that's fine.
Yeah, so it's basically around finding that out, getting the right value prop going, and taking it forward from there. I think that's the most important bit. Maybe I think some of the other details can be covered in some of the other questions, Rishabh.
Yeah, though there is a common problem statement that everyone has shared. When you're at a very early stage, your problem, like you're solving for some problem, but there are very similar things in different industries, and different people are talking to asking for different things, which are completely stark opposite from, let's say, what you were building. It's solving a similar problem. It's very similar to what you're doing, but in terms of what you're trying to build, it's completely different. Like when to say no, when to concise and say that, hey, like Anupreet did mention, like you have to identify two personas, not more than two. But then even within these two personas, when do you say no? When do you say yes? When do you think this is something that, okay, we can actually look at building?
Yeah. So I think, as early stage founders, and especially, the salespeople in these teams, once you start hiring salespeople, you definitely do find it very difficult to say no, because you're not getting like thousands of leads every month or every day, right? You only have so many conversations, and then you get emotional about closing each one of them anyhow, right? I mean, you think that this is a make or break for my business, and if I don't do this, probably I'll not have a business. I think it's extremely important to say no. I think it's your as founders, you need to take a stance, because otherwise I wouldn't be standing by my product team side. But just because I don't have my product heads and my product VPs on this call, I don't mind saying that there's a lot on their plate, and they can't be taking in every customer request. So that's why we asked this question initially: if you're building SaaS or if you're not building SaaS. And if you're building an IT product company, then you have to understand that your product's vision needs to come from probably 70-75% from your founders and their overall, especially in this stage, right? There's the vision with which you started the company, and you're not even probably 20% with that vision. You've probably launched just an MVP, and just after the MVP, without even getting to the, let's say, 80-90% of the vision that you started off with, you have these 25 prospects, not even customers, prospects that are telling you, hey, build that for me, build this for me, I want this. They are trying to solve for their immediate problem. And their immediate problem might not even be a problem after 6 months. So by the time you build it, they might have solved for it with or without a tool. So let's say today my immediate problem is that, my employees, after accepting the offer letter, are not really joining, right? And you are an HR tech tool, and you are building an ATS. And I come and tell you, hey, you know what? In your ATS, you should have this kind of an option as well, wherein I can keep my employees warm after they've accepted the offer letters as well, and blah blah blah. 6 months down the line, the market dynamics change, and you have more candidates than the jobs that are available in the market, and every single employee that you're rolling out offer letters to is more than happy to join, right? And actually the market dynamics have changed completely. And the customer who asked for this feature also doesn't need it anymore. And when while you were doing that, another ATS, because ATS is a pretty crowded market, another ATS built 5 other features that were mostly generic and would be required in the coming future as well. So you need to understand that you need to learn to weigh what is gonna help like a very, very broad audience and for a very long time, versus what is like a immediate problem that this person is trying to solve for. And I'm a product company. I will not build something that, in the end will not be an essential part of the product, right? Especially at this stage. So I think you need to build either a different product. I think you would have heard this millions of times maybe, but you need to build either a product that is different from your immediate competitor, or probably 10x better than your immediate competitor, right? Because in the end, you're trying to just rip and replace that market. I come from a market that is extremely crowded. Slintel is in ZoomInfo's market. If you've heard this name, I'm sure most of you might have heard this name. And if not ZoomInfo, you might have heard of Lasha, right? And Slintel does both Lasha and ZoomInfo and more. So to get into this crowded market and build a business which is acquisible, and then eventually be a part of another ship that is IPO ready, is a lot of I would say conviction towards your product. A lot of people that came to us asked for, let's say, data for different geographies that we didn't focus on. We had to say no to them. So I think saying no is the best thing that a founder can do on these sales calls. I repeat, as a salesperson, I would not say that in my own company to my own founder, but I want to say this to you because I think that's the right way to go about it. You should not be building features just for one deal. If you think a broader audience will be happy with that, please go ahead and do that. Your customers do influence your product roadmap. I'm not denying that. But you need to understand which customers and what product features that are you building, and not anything and everything that will just help you close that one extra deal. When you look at it from a larger scheme of things, hopefully 3 years down the line, all of you should have more than 500 customers. And then this one customer will not matter at all. And you will still have that feature sitting in your code library that you built for that one customer, and no one else is using it. So you don't want to be in that situation. So Prakhar, over to you.
Yeah, I think broadly, see, one of the key aspects is that as a founder, you have to be very clear about why you build the product and what direction it wants to take. So there will be requests coming along the way, and some will be really useful as well, where you will get those nuggets on, how it's actually adding value to the overall product that would benefit the broader audience at large. And in a lot of cases, not so much. That's where you have to, be headstrong and just take that conscious call of what is the one that's going to benefit your long-term vision and is tied along with it, and what is actually making you take a different branch altogether. Because with limited bandwidth and resources, you can do only so much. You acquire a really large customer who actually starts asking you, 10 additional features, or starts dealing with you like they are used to dealing with enterprises. All your bandwidth can actually get sucked up, and ultimately a year later you realize they churn, which now brings you back to zero, because you built all those features which are not so useful now to other customers, and the customer is no longer with you also because of whatever reason. So you want to take those conscious calls of utilizing your efforts in the right direction and in the right way. I think also one bit that becomes important on the product side is, see, that's why it's so important to acquire few of your early customers as the right ones. Now, not always will be it's not always under your control, because there's also pressure to acquire customers. You want to get some funds coming in. You want to get that early traction going. So it's hard to always say that, okay, this customer is the right customer and this customer is a wrong customer, so I'm not going to acquire them, etc. It's easier said than done. So you do acquire them, but over a period of time, you start filtering. You start looking at the metrics of, okay, where the value prop is resonating more. You will actually start analyzing some of your churn metrics also to see who are the customers who are sticking with you more. So then you can target those customer personas and buyer personas and company profiles a lot more than others who are actually churning, and then figuring out. And there will be small pivots you will be doing along the way as well. Like at Whatfix, I can tell you, when we started selling to startups. But then soon we realized that while startups are great value proposition and had a brilliant problem statement for us. Startups did not have the kind of money that we were looking for from a product such as ours. So we pivoted along the way, and then we started selling to enterprises, and there the value prop was very different. But again, enterprises actually had a lot more money to pay us. So that was a pivotal point, and some of these things you understand along the way as well. So I think it's important to stay focused on the core vision, not get swayed away by sometimes market noise. As they say, is good, that it gives you great nuggets along the way to sort of build the product, but sometimes that is just noise that you want to cut through and still stay focused.
Prakhar, you mentioned, yeah.
No, just was one thing that I wanted to add to Prakhar's, point. So when you look at the, macro level things after 2 years, right? I'll tell you something from my own, GRR, NRR statement that I've gone through like last week. GRR is gross retention rate, NRR is net retention rate. So we realized that we have around 400 customers today. From all the 400 customers, if we could retain 40 of them, the top 40, not just any 40, but the top 40, our GRR will be 85%. By which I mean, should we put efforts in retaining these 40, or should we put efforts in retaining the other 360 in the next year, right? I will have to make 360 customers happy to retain as much revenue as I can retain by just, keeping 40 customers happy. So what I'm trying to say is that many of these initial customers will end up becoming these 360 customers for you after a while. So you need to give as much weightage to them. Because as you move along the way, your average ACVs will consistently go up, and in 2 years down the line, what was your average ACV referring to annual? I've been speaking these jargons for such a long time that I've forgotten most of the full. It takes conscious efforts to actually give the full forms, but I'm genuinely doing that because I see in the chats there are a lot of people who are asking for it. So ACV refers to average contract value. So annual contract value. So basically, the average ACV, the average annual contract value of these of your deals will move up maybe 2 to 3 to 5 to 10x in the next 2 years, right? By which I mean the ones that you're closing right now will be pretty insignificant by the time you close your 200th customer or your 300th customer, and so to maintain a great GRR on books, which will be extremely important for you to raise your next round of fundings. At that stage, right, your Series B or Series C cannot happen with a bad GRR, with a bad NRR. And the interesting part is that the upsell capabilities are also with these 40. By which I mean, if we have to even, expand our NRR to like 120, 130, 135, these 40 are the most important customers for us. That is the analysis that we've done as recently as last week about our own set of customers. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, in your future, also these customers are going to be insignificant, but these are important. They'll be your champions. So onboard customers, that will be your champions. Onboard customer only if there's a product market fit with this particular guy. If you think this particular company will not benefit from your product, might as well not sell it, because you don't want to, record churn. And maybe Prakhar can chime in on this one as well. After your Series A, Series B, conversations are not so much about net new business added. Conversations are more about the gross churn and the net retention rates. So companies that are doing extremely well on Wall Street are actually the ones who have very, very sticky products, and customers stay with them for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That is the whole ideology behind SaaS. That is why SaaS is valued at 100x, 200x multiples, right? The whole value behind it is that you close a customer once, it stays with you for the next 10 years. So that's how you need to think about when you're closing customers, that will this customer really be with me for the next 5 to 10 years? If that is the case, then yes, you're onboarding a great customer, and his annual contract values with you will change consistently along the years, right? So what he might be paying today will be very different from what he'll pay 5 to 10 years down the line. But if he churns after 6 months or churns after 18 months, then this is not really the customer that you wanted to spend on all those dollars on. And the customer acquisition cost, by the way, is going to be very, very high for you after a while if you're in a competitive landscape. So you don't want to spend all that customer acquisition cost to onboard a customer that will churn after 1 year. You need that customer to be with you for a few years to ensure that CAC customer acquisition value is cost of customer acquisition is making sense, and overall CAC is making sense. So anyway, Rishabh, I think you were saying something.
Yeah, no, actually, I was just going to question Prakhar on what you were saying there. So Prakhar mentioned that you had basically changed your strategy to enterprise. Now, most of the people, so I would say there's 50% split. So let's say if you have 100 startups here, 50% of them are building directly for enterprise, which is large companies. Where do they find them? How do they approach them? How do they get that first one or two POCs in, or how do they reach that place to the right decision maker? So
Yeah,
that would be a good learning for all of the people to have.
for sure. And Rishabh, actually, before I take that, I'll just go back to the last point Anupreet was mentioning. I don't want to confuse people, but I have a slightly differing opinion there to what Anupreet said. I thought I'll just add because they'll give people a different perspective also. See, I think, so one is for any customer we onboard, I think it's very hard for, a seller or as a founder to understand that, is this customer going to be with us or not? I think that also becomes tricky because of so many dynamics involved. I mean, I can give you examples where we have onboarded Fortune customers, and usually these are the stickiest customers. Your lifetime value of these customers are the longest in general, but they've also churned because of COVID related issues. So sometimes just beyond your control. So you can't really do that. And the 40 customer example also that Anupreet is gave, I also want to highlight that these not necessary that the first 40 will be those 40 that he's referring to. Those 40 might come in from a herd of 100 customers. There will be a lot of froth that you will continue to filter. It's not like you onboard 40 and those 40 are the ones who actually become the ones according to Pareto principle, ones that are adding 80% of your revenues and are giving you the best gross retention rates. So not necessary. Okay. So you, in the early days, of course, you want to onboard, you want to see the right product market fit customers, be as conscious as possible of who you are selling to, but then there's only so much you can do. That was my opinion on it. And I just wanted to add.
Yeah. In fact, what I was trying to say, just to clarify, is that the first 40 will most likely not be those 40 by the time you reach 400. So you might not want to, focus all your effort in these 40, because in the larger scheme of things, these 40 will not matter as much. Right now they matter the world to you because they're 100% of your customers. But right, in the larger scheme of things, you'll have much bigger customers every year. Your average ACVs will increase, and the customers that you will onboard later will be a lot more important for you to retain over the period of time. So yeah, Rishabh, I'll let you drive the flow.
Yeah. So I'll take Rishabh's question then on the enterprise side. So really good. So see, typically when you start selling to enterprises, first thing you should figure out is what geography do you want to target? That would be the first question you want to answer, whether it's India, Southeast Asia, Europe, US, where exactly do you want to target? Second thing you do is define what an enterprise means to you. That is basically defining your ideal buyer persona. You can call it a customer persona or a buyer persona. It's interchangeably used in the industry. But what basically that means is what type of company is an enterprise to you. Sometimes a 200 employee plus company is an enterprise. Some companies actually have it by revenues. So above $100 million company will be an enterprise. Some companies actually have it by some other metrics. So you decide what is the definition of an enterprise. At Whatfix, for us, an enterprise means 1,000 employee plus company is an enterprise for us. Okay. Once you have now identified that, then you identify who is your ideal customer profile, which was Anupreet's point on who do you want to sell to. Now, in a larger company, it's very important for you to narrow down that right persona where the problem statement is most acute. So let's say for us today, we say that typical sellers or typical salespeople struggle with CRM adoption. So any technology such as Salesforce, any technology such as HubSpot, or any CRM for that matter that people are using, usually sales leadership is troubled with. There is no proper data hygiene maintained by sales rep, which leads to poor forecasting, which leads to unreasonable reports, and which leads to missing numbers very often. Now that's a broader problem statement that Whatfix can solve, where we can say we can accelerate your Salesforce adoption. So who is the right fit for us in that particular case? The right fit for us becomes somebody in the sales leadership. So it could be sales operations, whose core job is to make sure that CRM adoption is top notch. It could be sales enablement, who is training the sales people on different processes in the CRM every day, or it could be VP sales themselves. So it totally depends. So now once you have identified who your ideal customer profile is, you basically find out their contacts. So again, how do you find out their contacts? That's where Anupreet's Slintel comes in, where you basically go to Slintel, you find out, put a few company names in a particular geography, see who are the relevant contacts that you basically want to target, take out their details, have their email addresses, contact numbers, and then you start reaching out to them. Then basically this is where the cadence comes in, or you call it a sequence, where you create a set strategy of X number of days where you are sending emails, calls. It's a 360-degree strategy. You're trying to reach out to people on LinkedIn about your product as well, and then telling them why you are building it. See, in the early days, when you're doing any of this, the idea is very few people will really buy it for your product. If you are selling it to 10 to 25 customers, if you are in that sub 25 customer range, people will actually buy it because of you, because of your passion that you have for the product, because of the passion that you have for solving that problem, less so because of the original product itself. And a lot of promises that you will make will all be in good faith that, hey, we'll build this for you, we'll build that for you along the way, and we have this, we have that, and that's why people will buy. That's how it works in the early days. So it's all about your passion, it's all about your sales team's passion in the early days. So this is one process that basically gets you to enterprises. Now you may ask several questions around, okay, how do I get to figure out who is the right enterprise for me, because there are so many out there, etc. See, second point I would give there is learn a little bit from the market. If you're not the first one, if you're not in a new category, there is a lot of help available out there. When I say help available out there, study the market, study the competitors, study who are the other vendors doing exactly similar. You should know everything. You should know what marketing campaigns they are running, what is their messaging, everything. So thoroughly that, see, when you are entering late, at least have that advantage of learning from the competition. You don't want to make the same mistakes they made already. So there's a lot of intel already. If you're not in a new category, unfortunately, we were in a new category. So there was not a lot of path available for us. There was a lot of path finding that we had to do on our own. But if you are building a product which already exists, there will be a lot of information that you can study from the market. Second is definitely have some of the other product differentiation, which Anupreet's point was that have 10x significant differentiation. I would say even if it is 2x, have it very clearly laid out in a way that if somebody is reading it and if they know that, okay, you compete with XYZ, who is a known player in the market, they immediately resonate that, okay, this is how you differentiate. And if you can actually continue to highlight that, you will be able to create a mark much easily, because else it just becomes run of the mill. Okay, you do something that somebody else does already and they are using it. Why do they move to you? So these are some of the nuggets, high level, I would give and pause here to probably see if there are any questions on this, because I can go into details, but then it might be just too granular.
How do you build rapport or have some kind of social credibility in the early stages? Because you don't have anything, right? You don't have that brand name which backs you up. So maybe one could be, you could use an investor's name, but sometimes we don't even have those in the early days.
You don't.
So,
see, you tell about your story. See, I'll tell you, when I started, I was cold calling people, and my first, job, or basically first objective of a cold call was not to sell about Whatfix, just to sort of get them to a longer call. Okay. In 2 minutes in an uninterrupted schedule, I couldn't sell Whatfix. One is we didn't even know what to call ourselves. Right now we call ourselves a digital adoption platform. That time we used to call ourselves an onboarding software, a customer experience software, a training software. People didn't understand what we did because it was just hard. And our product is very, very visual. So until you see it, you can't visualize what we actually do. So my job used to be get them to a longer call. Now, if I have succeeded in getting them to a longer call, I would probably tell them a little bit about Whatfix, and with some rapport building, try to tell them, why did I even join Whatfix? So try to sell them about the passion that you have and why do you think this will make it so big? And why do you think this problem is going to be big? And half the people will actually relate to your passion, will see that, okay, this is a problem statement, and they'll buy your product just because of that. So yes, there is very little credibility, but see, you will always, there's a lot of, I would say we Indians are blessed with that way of winging our way through, right? That jugaad is a very unique thing that only Indians have. And we're blessed to sort of have it. You'll figure out your way. There will always be something as a resemblance that you'll find out, which will give you that credibility from somewhere. It could be as simple as, your past background in why, you were an expert doing this for last 10 years and now you're building the product. So you have that passion of doing it. It could be your investor network. It could be just 2 customers that you have onboarded and why they have basically purchased your product. You'll find out that way. There will be ways.
Yeah. And I would say to double down on the jugaad part of what Prakhar said, right? I would like to say that, you kind of have to fake it till you make it. And before I go deeper into, how to ensure that your brand does not come across as a super, young brand, I read some of those messages on chat. I'd like to play a video and then ask you, what do you think about this company and how big do you think the company is? So let me just do that very quickly. It's a 1-minute video. I'll just play it very quickly.
I just can't even imagine at this point.
Our team would be really upset, and me.
I'd be getting a lot of questions as far as how am I getting notifications?
Oh man, that would definitely be a giant freaking headache.
So I think my reps will hate me, and my sales ops person would also hate me because he will have to now make sure that everything that is now being done by that is being done by him.
Some things would require more resource and time to build out, and others would just have to go away.
It would slow us down, I think. It would slow me as an admin down.
I think everyone would be really disappointed. I think we'd be back to all the manual entry. And I think once you have seen where something's really good, you don't want to go back to that.
I mean, I would essentially have to rebuild all the things that would be required, and then that goes back to not everything's working consistently. It takes much more time to build, takes more time to maintain.
For us, like, this is blaze a new trail, right? So we would probably be going back to like strict email notification, which was one of the reasons in which we looked at a tool like this to begin with.
I would be pretty frustrated and annoyed just because I'd have to go through the pain of setting it up in a different system, lead to bad things like our data wouldn't be as clean. So I hope that doesn't happen.
Just removes the flexibility of implementing new processes really fast.
So both ways, I think I'll have a team of unhappy people that have to ensure that Salesforce is being filled, and I'll be left with the reports that are not being updated in real time. There will be a lot of impact.
Taking away a Slack integration, like, you're going to hear about it one way or another.
A lot of people would not be very happy. I'll say that.
So I know about the company, so I won't answer.
Yeah. So basically, I'll break it for you guys. I mean, the video has 7 to 8 more than $10 million companies, 2 to 3 more than $100 million companies in revenue. All of these companies are mostly valued at more than $1 billion. All the people that you saw in that video, most of the companies are valued at more than $1 billion. The company is less than 25 employees. They're less than 1 year in the business, and they have less than $0.5 billion in revenue. Right? The reason why I can say all of these things is because, the founder is a good friend of mine, and I know these specifics. What did he do right to get this video right? Now, after this video, I'm sure anyone who has questions about the credibility of that will go away, right? Because there are so many people who are in that ICP. If you notice the titles, most of them were in operations. Sampath, I'm not talking about the company itself. I'm talking about the people who were coming on that video. Those were the customers. So even though in the crazy valuations that we're getting right now, that could also be possible in another day, right? I mean, I'm seeing $1 billion valuations for companies that are pretty small in their revenue. But anyway, this company is definitely not a unicorn. But they're very small is what I was trying to give you as an example. Like, 6 months back, they were pretty, young. They had 0 customers. In the last 6 months, what did they change, right? They ensured that they're going after, when I said 2000, they did it. They did, and because they were friends of mine, I'm consulting with them when the company's name was also not decided, right? So basically, the thing that they did, right? What they took that 2000 ICP TAM analysis that I was talking about very seriously. They went after one title, and they went after 200 logos, just 200 logos that they really wanted to have on their homepage, logos that they really wanted to get testimonials from. And with all that they got right, they made sure that they built the product for these 200 companies and for this one persona, which was the sales operations leaders in the companies. And when they did that, just after closing 6 logos, they could get this video, because one, the product was made for them and all of them were extremely happy. 2, all these brands were the brands that they really wanted to close in the first place. These are all, companies that people resonated with. These were all unicorns. They wanted to onboard the customers. Companies like, Terminus, Partner Stack, companies that were out there, pretty big brands and all of that. Right. All they wanted to focus on US markets. So you see, except for me, everyone else is a white in that video. Why? Because, they wanted to make sure that the company comes across as a company that is made for US, made for enterprise customers, made for fast growing startups in that category of, $1 to $3 billion, $1 to $5 billion valuations, or in the space of $50 to $500 million in revenue. They wanted to play in that ballpark, and they knew that is their TAM, that is their ICP. So to answer the questions that were in the chat, right? One, we need to close logos that we really want to, then flaunt on our websites, because the initial customers also become those. And then make sure that these companies become your champions. They're recording these videos for you. They are on G2 Crowd. Your LinkedIn, is having high quality content, and content like this being posted. So no matter where these companies go for social validation of your product, they see all shiny things. So G2 Crowd, Sampath, is basically a reviews website, and Ashish can probably put the link of G2 right here, wherein companies give reviews for B2B startups. So your customers, your initial customers, if they can be your champions, they can make sure that your G2 is like roaring with great testimonials and all of that. So I'll just take a quick pause and see if there are any questions that I haven't answered after that video. But I just wanted to kind of motivate you guys into believing that brand can be redone by spending some dollars, but also making sure that your customers that you've closed initially are high quality customers. They have less than 10 customers right now, but the customers that they have are solid, right? The customers that they have are ones that they can put on their website and get these testimonials from.
Just on that point, actually, Rishabh, before you probably go to your next question, it's very interesting. I'll actually share a nugget from our story in the early days. We were sub 25 customers, and Google came to our website somehow, filled in the form. I just jumped on the lead and called the guy up, and we started discussing. The requirement was a great fit, etc. And this call is being recorded. And where all are you going to post it, Rishabh? So I'm still going to
We'll cut it out. We'll cut it out.
Yeah, I'm still going to share this though. It's interesting. It'll help a lot of you guys. So I jumped on the lead. I basically called, understood the requirements. It was a great fit. But Google being Google, they needed some certifications, basic certifications for us to be acquired as a vendor. And we were not ISO 27001 or SOC 2 or any of those compliant in the early days. So it was basically a no-go, and we couldn't get them on board. However, there was a route where an individual could, our product basically is a plugin, right? It's as simple as a browser plugin, and you can install plugins. I mean, there's nothing needed if you actually install plugins at Google. So we figured out a back route of still being able to do that, but not officially in a way that basically it needed a contract. But the Google would still pay us. Okay. And we figured that arrangement out. So again, that's where the jugaad or the hack comes in, that you don't give up once you see the door closed, but you figure out another way. And what we also did is we actually discounted the price for them. We said, hey, you take it at a discount, have any number of Google users use it, not a problem at all. The only request is allow us to use your logo. And they said, okay. I mean, it's a 50,000 people company. Who cares where Google is using what? The guy was okay. So we got that in return. And then we milked Google's logo every single place, to Anupreet's point, right? Every single place we could, website, flyers, wherever we went to events, and everybody knew that, hey, Google is using this, and Google doesn't use anything and everything. So again, it brings a lot of credibility. It drove a lot of traffic. All our ad campaigns would actually have Google uses Whatfix for XYZ, etc. And it just gave us a lot of buzz and traffic. So again, finding out those small nuggets of still being able to brand yourself with limited money. I think Anupreet shared some really good examples. I could share this relevant story from that, and I thought of sharing.
I think nothing better than customer logos, right? In the end, there's someone who has asked, sometimes B2B buyers freak out when they see a youngster.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, right? I mean, you just throw this video at them, right? Then age doesn't matter anymore, right? I mean, I mean, when I would interpret it as a young brand and not a young person. I mean, if someone is judging on the age of the person, I mean, that's probably not the right buyer for you. He's not a matured enough buyer to, make that buying decision. I mean, if I'm buying a product, I don't buy the product on the basis of the seller's age, right? I buy it on the basis of product features and things like that, right? I can understand, if someone doesn't really want to buy a young product, because lack of trust, lack of security, kind of confidence on that particular company, that could happen. And that is where this video can play a really big role. But if, let's say, someone is judging your account executive's age or your age as a founder, I mean, you can completely ignore that company and move on to the next customer.
In fact, I mean, there's something that I do understand, because this happened with me actually 3.5 years back. So in my previous startup, I was the first, sales rep as such that was hired. So I walked into a meeting with a big NBFC where I had a meeting with the IT head. So ideally, my founder had to meet, but he couldn't turn up, so I had to, go and take that meeting. As soon as he saw me enter his cabin, he looked up and he said, "What is your age?" Like, it does happen. It can happen. So the first thing that he asked me was, okay, from how long have you been working? How old are you? Did you work somewhere before? That is all that he asked for the first 5 minutes. But then we had a 1.5 hour discussion post that just basis. So luckily, before I did sales, I also did operations at my previous company, and I understood the tech piece as well. For the next 1 hour, I just explained him how the tech piece works. No selling, no requirement discussion of what he needs, nothing. Just how the tech works. And at the end of that 1 hour, I saw his communication change, everything change, and he was completely comfortable about talking with me about anything. So you are definitely, you're the founder. Your passion, your understanding of what you are trying to do will reflect, and it will add up. Like, even if someone is starting with that apprehension, it will go away. And if it still doesn't go away, then I would just go by what Anupreet said. Maybe it's not the right buy. I do have another thing to share here. In the early stages, getting these kind of corporate POCs, a lot of corporate have their innovation networks today. So that piece can also be utilized to get in those doors. Usually, you would see there are three kinds of, so you don't have to work with all kind of corporate innovation networks. There are three kinds. The first one would be the kind where they have internal problem statements and their corporate innovation network is searching for solutions. So personally, I've worked with Sodexo there, and we were able to get them, as a paying customer there. Similarly, there is Maruti Suzuki runs an accelerator where they have internal problems to solve. Bosch, AB and Bev, all of these people have internal problem statements already ready, and they are very open to startups getting on board and solving it. They definitely give a paid POC, and if the paid POC works out, they convert it to a production. You can also work with the likes of TCS, Infosys, Accenture. These places, they have their, again, co-innovation network where they upsell their current clients with their startup solutions. These are two really good, ways where a lot of startups I've seen, they can get some early logos through these people, because adding, let's say, going via Infosys also adds through their trust. Like, they already have a running relationship with the customers, so that helps. These are just two things what I would add, for what was already shared. Next thing, that I would want to jump to is, let's say we have paying POCs right now. There are POCs running. How do you, build trust or add enough value where you can now convert them to annual contracts where you are actually making money now? In POCs, like, let's be honest, there is a very limited amount of money that you can make. Like, it's just a one-time payment. That's it. How do you actually convert them to properly paying customers.
I can take a step first. So, Rishabh, actually a follow-up question to that. Why do we have paid POCs in the first place? Like, there are two questions I typically ask founders. Why do you have paid POCs in the first place? What is your average ticket size? So my thought process is always around anything in the range of $20,000. If you're selling $25,000, there shouldn't be a paid POC at all. And why do you even need to do a paid POC? It's just you're delaying your own success. You're increasing your sales cycle. So probably avoiding a paid POC is best in those scenarios, unless you are trying to acquire your first 4 or 5 customers, then it's a different story altogether. But if you have 5, even 10 customers, then you don't need to do paid POCs. I mean, you have enough success that you have actually shown to the market. You've acquired a few initial customers and just, use some of those names and testimonials and go from there to actually try and directly sell. Now, if your ticket sizes are larger, then I can understand that nobody would want to invest in a young company on $100,000 at first. So they might want to do a paid POC. So there it makes more sense, but it only delays success. Also, I think in paid POCs, one of the big challenges that I see with a lot of companies is these POCs are just very ad hoc. Okay, how long you ask your buyer, how long do you want to do a POC? Your buyer will be like 3 months. They don't know if 3 months is enough to see the value or 3 days is enough to see the value. And the founder's like, okay, let's do it. But what are you going to do in that 3 months? Probably if at the back end, you are actually seeing the actual time spent on the product and the actual number of hours spent by everybody from their team inside the product, that would be not more than a few hours. I can bet on it. It would not be more than 10, 12 hours at best. And if you have that, why not sort of cut that time short in a limited time frame? So when we started, we actually started at Whatfix with a 14-day trial. And we thought it was decent. People would come and ask for a 30-day trial and we would not give. We would be like, hey, why do you need a 30-day trial? They would have their own reasons. And we would be like, hey, we've structured our trials in a way that 14 days is more than enough. Let's go ahead with this. If you need more time, I would be willing to take approvals and extend then. So I'm not saying a no, okay, but I am still sort of trying to engage them. So, and in most of the cases, if you actually structure your POC well, what is going to happen on each of those 14 days? If there is a very defined playbook, first day you do this, second day you do this, fourth day you do this, 8th day you do this, and 10th day we are done. And if there are any iterations needed, let's do that in the last 4 days. And we measure everything that you've achieved against the success criteria. So if you go about that process, then it becomes very structured. And we realized 14 days was a lot. Then we reduced it to 7 days. Now our trials, we sell to Fortune companies. We only sell to Fortune 10s to Global 10,000s. Our trials are still 7 days only. Basically, a Fortune number 2 company, ExxonMobil, who's a customer today, can come and ask for a trial. We'll still give 7 days only. Because that's what we do. That's how we can show you the value in 7 days. It's a quick onboarding product and we have a process around it. So if you structure your POC process very well on what we are going to be doing in this, what do you want to achieve out of this POC? What does the success criteria mean to you? Half the time your buyers won't know. So you educate them that, hey, typically this is what the success criteria looks like to some of our other prospects. So we have mentioned it. Does that resonate with you? Or do you want to add anything else? And then you add that accordingly. And then you measure that, help them achieve that in that limited time frame, measure that, and then get to a point. According to me, that's one of the right approaches, because now if they've met the success criteria, they ultimately should convert to a paid customer. You'll not have a scenario where, okay, now the POC is over and again we are discussing that, hey, what next from here? And again, it's been 3 months and no decision. At least you won't get into that scenario, because often it happens that, okay, 3 months was the POC. Now that's over. Now there's another 3 months of discussion going on. But why? If there was a success criteria that was met, then let's go ahead, right? So it'll reduce your sales cycle drastically as well. But I'm sure Anupreet might have something more to add to it as well.
No, so I think I come from a world wherein, you don't really require to give as many POCs. So we were not giving many POCs until we started closing some high ticket deals wherein, they just come in with the expectation that, hey, everyone else gave us a POC, so you should also need to give us a POC. So, and I've learned my POC game from Prakhar. I reached out to him. I actually went on a session with him. He shared his playbook with me. That's how I've implemented my POC games. It's nothing different to what Prakhar said. You dictate your terms. I think that's the bottom line of the POC. It's your product. The other person is literally not paying for it. Even if it's a paid POC, is not literally paying the cost of the product to you. So why would he dictate the terms? And right now the equation is such that he's not a customer yet, right? So I mean, don't let the customer dictate the terms, because as Prakhar said, most of the times it will be baseless. Someone saying I need a 3-week pilot or a 2-week pilot will be baseless. He will probably use it for 3 hours. So let's just figure out what are the 3 hours that you want to use it for, and let's give you the trial for that day. So in our case, the product is not as implementation heavy. So our product is pretty straightforward. It's a plug and play product. So we limit our trials to a maximum of 2 days. We try to do it in the same day. So, when customers say that, hey, I want to use your product, we're like, hey, what do you want to do with it? We know usually what people will do with the database company, right? They'll try to search themselves up. And do you have my email and phone number? If that's the case, you're a great company. I mean, that's not how we evaluate a database that has 280 million profiles. That, hey, if you don't have me, you don't have anything. If you have me, my email and phone number correctly, then you're the best product in the market, right? So that's the most intuitive way for someone to test a product. And that is coming from data. When we look at our trial data, we see that most of the people search for themselves to test the data out. So we try to educate them that, hey, this is the best way to, pilot our product. And then we put them on that trial and we tell them that, hey, you know what? Most companies that have seen success out of the pilot have done this. You might as well want to get like a database of 1,000 people in your ICP from us, as against getting into the product and getting lost in this, ocean of data, which has like so many more profiles that you don't care about. I mean, let me start off by saying that, hey, we have 300 million profiles, but what if half of them are doctors and nurses and engineers and plumbers that you don't care about at all, right? So let me just talk about your ICP and tell you how many profiles do you have in the first place. So let me educate you on how to evaluate a data tool, because I set up people on a trial for a data tool probably 5 times in a day. You are evaluating a data tool maybe first time in your life, or maybe second or third at max. So let me tell you, if the others did not tell you on how to evaluate a data tool, and when you come in with that kind of authority, and when you come in with that kind of, the stance of educating the prospect, the respect that the prospect will have for you will be in a different level altogether, right? Now prospect is a student and you're a teacher. And the kind of respect in that relationship changes suddenly, right? So don't let the prospect lead the charge, especially when it comes to the pilots, right? So, and secondly, sales cycles are very, very critical. We maintain a sales cycle of around 2 to 7 days here at Slintel for a deal value of somewhere between 7K to 25K. So anything that is up to 25K needs to close in 7 working days. Otherwise we de-incentivize people on that particular deal. That's how brutal we are on the sales cycle. We really want to close fast deals and close them fast, because only then can you grow the company at like a 4x, 5x pace year on year, right? So if your A is sitting on one deal for 3 to 6 months and then closing it for 25K, that you cannot survive your business, right? I mean, and we don't play in that 100K to $1 million game, right? Which Prakhar potentially does. So we're in a different market. So you have to understand your market, and then based on that, define your rules and regulations and your incentives and spiffs about it. I'm not going to the incentives and spiff. Most of the founders will be like, hey, I've not even started making money. You're already talking about incentives for our reps. But I'm just saying that you have to drive behavior in your company based on this. I see a lot of questions around price though, but Rishabh will come to, and everyone will come to price when we discuss the topic of price.
I think just one point, sorry, Anupreet. There's an interesting one that I missed from Yatendra at Maple Technologies. I think it's around product-led growth. And okay, what I mentioned is purely for enterprises. Yatendra, your point is fully valid that, for product-led growth, of course, you have to have a trial, because you can't scale with, enough number of salespeople. It is mainly trial-based. So there your product has to be intuitive enough for, your buyers to just come in and play around with the product and then do it. Again, you don't want to make it too long. Standard in SaaS is 7 to 14 days, depending on what sort of objective your product helps achieve. But I think that's ideal. You don't want to make it too long, but I definitely want to say that because trials are the way to go in product-led growth. That's how you drive more conversions. Sorry, missed adding that context, and thanks for bringing that in.
Thanks. Anupreet, I guess, were you complete with the point that you were making there?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. So something that you had suggested, Anupreet, can we take that up? Like closing the first cold prospect, like someone who hasn't come through any introduction, nothing. just first cold prospect?
Yeah, I think, a lot of times as founders, we start, and there was a question in the chat as well that, can I close my friends, right? So I think the friend can be in your TAM, and then of course you can close them. But I wouldn't classify that to be like a success or a product market fit unless, I've closed a few of my cold prospects. I wouldn't raise my next round of funding unless I have closed some of, absolute closed prospects. I would not hire my first salesperson till I have closed my first cold prospect myself as a founder. And you should, try to understand the importance of this. I have seen multiple founders, blasting out that we've reached our product market fit with the first 10 customers when all the 10 customers were really from your friends and family network. And then you hire a salesperson, and that salesperson is not able to succeed, right? He's making calls day in, day out. He's sending those emails. He's sending those LinkedIn messages, trying to do everything that you're asking him to do. He's not able to get a single meeting for first month, for second month, and then you fire him, right? I'm talking about real world scenarios, right? The reason why this has happened is because you don't have the script that works for you. And the SDR is an SDR because he can't create his own scripts today. He's the youngest person in a sales hierarchy. So you need to, prep him. You need to give him the armory. And what he's good at is that he'll rinse and repeat what you give him. So you give him a message that needs to be copy pasted on, let's say, 60 people on LinkedIn. But you need to tell him the people that he needs to reach out to. You need to give him that ICP chart that I was talking about and tell him that, hey, these are the personas and these are the accounts that you have to reach out to. And this is the message that you have to send. All of that needs to come from you and not that SDR. So don't blame it on the SDR when that SDR fails to get you those meetings after you have closed those 10 customers, because when you close them, they were your friends and families. And when you are expecting him to do that, you're asking him to do an absolute cold outreach. So what I'm trying to, help you understand is that you can hire an SDR sooner than that if you have the budgets for it, but then try to understand that he will help you close deals. He will not be closing deals independently, first of all. And then secondly, you need to together build the message and that cadence. By cadence, I mean, a sequence of a series of events that need to happen to close the deal. So, the first LinkedIn message, the first email, the follow-up email, the cold calling script, and so on and so forth. Do all of that, and then probably close 4 to 5 cold prospects with that message. When I say close, I'm talking about getting them to a meeting. So closure from an SDR point of view is to get a qualified lead to a meeting, and then closure for an account executive would be to take that to a success and get some revenue out of it. So what I'm trying to say is that try to get 5 cold prospects to come on a meeting with you, and once that meeting is completed, see how many of them become opportunities and eventually close. And then once you have that baseline set, then you can keep that as an expectation from all the other team members that you'll be hiring, and then from there scaling up becomes easy because you now have a playbook. So whatever the VPs of the world are talking about this playbook all the time that they've created for different organizations. Playbooks are nothing outside of what I just mentioned. Just a lot more refined and a lot more elaborative. But playbook is nothing but how do you reach out to a cold prospect, to how do you get the money out of that prospect and send that contract out. Like that's pretty much what the playbook is. So you need to define that playbook for yourselves and then give it to people that you're hiring, and then it gets passed on along the way. It improves along the way. There are many data points that will change along the way, but then that becomes your Bible over a period of time, and then you not even realize when you're not being involved in sales anymore and the sales team is closing the deals by themselves. But if you enter the sales motion without closing some cold prospects yourself, then it's going to be a very big uphill battle, because you'll realize that you're just hiring and firing people, and that wastes a lot of time more than anything else. So I'll stop there. You were the first employee. I'll let you take that over.
No, I think you've covered a lot of points in that regard, and I don't have anything specific to add on this. Just looking at the time as well, and Rishabh, if you want to move on to the next one, we can do that. I see some really good questions in chat as well.
Yeah,
I was just trying to type one out for, there was this one question on how do we close it after showing the demo and everything. How do we exactly buy them to buy? See, I think this is very, very important. And, to some, it might just sound very generic that, yeah, it does happen and has to happen. Like what is there to ask, but not so much. It naturally doesn't come to everyone. And in early days, I remember, I used to take some demos as well. And one of the, ways I learned doing demos, etc., is actually taking demos from other vendors. And I would hear how they are presenting. Okay, so I did not know that, okay, and it's stupid, but I can share this, that I did not know we had to probably start with a presentation or a company introduction, before actually getting to the product. And I would just jump into the product, ask a couple of questions on the requirements, and this is Whatfix very quickly, and no slides, let's jump into the product, and here's the demo. But when I started seeing that, no, there's a trend where people actually have a couple of slides. So I learned from it, reiterated. Second thing I realized was everybody was asking questions, and towards the end, nobody was focusing as much on the close, but it was all about the next steps. You were talking about what are the next steps from here. If you like that product, what do you want to do next? Either it's a POC, or you want to add more people from your team to look at the product. Either there is somebody else who needs to look at it, and so on. I mean, there could be multiple branches to it, but figure out what that next step is, and then ultimately close. So you have to either, if your product is transactional, then it's a direct ask for a close, that, hey, you really seem to have enjoyed as per your feedback. So what's the next step in closing? I can send you a credit card link. And we actually moved from a process where it's not our world anymore because we moved to enterprise. But I remember right after the demo, I've sent credit card links where people have swiped $6,000 or $8,000 when we were actually at that sort of a ticket size. Because now, hey, you liked it, you have seen it, you're saying you want to use it on top of Salesforce. The demo that I gave you is on top of Salesforce. Now, what do you want to do? People are like, I want to do a trial. And my answer would be, why would you want to do a trial? I just showed you on top of Salesforce. And that's exactly what your world is. So it works the same way. And if it doesn't work, we anyway have a money back guarantee. So why don't you go ahead with it? And they're like, yeah, then send me a credit card link. So ultimately, see, you have to ask for the close. That becomes very important. That was one of the questions in the chat that I thought I'll address. There's another one that's just coming to, it's a slight digression, but still important on the funds. And, when you have limited funds, when do you hire the first salesperson and how do you connect the dots, etc. on team expansion? See, I think one of the pieces I strongly believe is for the first few customers, you have to sell yourself as a founder. When you have a few customers, you might have some seed funding to basically get to, or if you don't have seed, then you will still have to sell your vision to somebody and have at least that much funds to hire one person. I'm not saying that person should be an SDR, BDR, or an AE. It has to be a person who is doing end-to-end tied into the vision of your company. So you probably offer ESOPs in the early days, you offer some other benefits, basically sell the vision as much as you sell to an investor and get one person on board. That is the only way to go about it. There is no easy way of actually, I don't see freelancers working when you are 5-7 customers. You can go to Fiverr, you can go to Mechanical Turks. There are so many out there, but I don't think they can give you it's just very, very early stage, and selling is tough. If it was that easy, then, you would have sold to 50 customers yourself. There is a reason that you are at 10 and you want to get to more. One is a bandwidth issue for sure, but then it is still tough and you need somebody dedicated to do it.
This is actually one of the questions that I had, though we have a specific question around, building teams, defining SDRA roles. But this came up in the last session. Who would you hire for first? Or would you hire, so this is the trend right now, people are hiring for journalists, CEOs office, these kind of roles. But if you have to make a distinction, who would you hire first, marketing or sales?
Yeah, I can take a stab, then I'll let Anupreet go next. So, okay, I've done both. So I'll tell you how it works. I was a digital marketer before my Whatfix job, and this is my first sales job. From past 7.5 years, I've been a salesperson now. So I was hired for marketing. So it was not really a sales role that I was hired for. I was brainwashed into sales because my CEO felt I did well there. But I don't know. I mean, it's a hard question to answer. It depends on what stage you are at. Okay, it depends on how many customers you have. Like when I joined, we had 4 customers back then. Basically, hardly any footprint. I think the bounce rate was 99% on the website. No leads coming in. I think one lead used to come in every week. That would be from a Gmail address where somebody thought we were a gaming website or something and just entered their details. So it was, nothing was there. Okay. So in those cases, when you actually hire marketing, see, marketing is basically setting your backbone or the framework that will actually give you the success in the times ahead. Sales can start giving you some initial results very quickly. I won't say very quickly also, because in outbound also that takes some time too. So if you have the funds to do it in parallel, probably do it together. Okay. If you don't, and if you have to choose between one, I would go for sales first, I would say. And that person has to be with a mixed mindset of, somebody who is more educational. Like when I joined, I was a digital marketer. So my sales approach was very, very educational and more an evangelist in the process of making sure that I'm actually evangelizing more than selling. How passionate am I about the industry and what we are willing to solve, etc. More than, actually going for just direct sales. That's what I would say. But this is very controversial. Anupreet, your thoughts?
So, I would start off with hiring an outbound SDR first, before we hire the first closer and the first marketer, because first you need to create demand for your product and you need to book a lot of meetings. And the founder has to be that first salesperson in the company, no matter what, anyway, because you need to collect that feedback and give it to your product teams and your engineering team. Even you need to question your own product a lot of times, and that those meetings are like your real. That's like looking at the mirror and saying that, hey, I thought the product will do this, but my first 25 meetings are just not seeing any value in it. So you need to be the closer anyway. So the first outbound SDR should be the first hire, in my opinion. And once you have enough demand created by this, this outbound SDR, let's say he's generating 4 meetings in a week, and in a month you're able to get like around 16 meetings from him, and you started churning some customers, right? So even if initially if you're closing 1 or 2 out of the 16 meetings that he's booking for you, you're now churning some kind of revenue. Now is when you can probably, in my opinion, hire an outsourced marketing agency and your first account executive. So an outsourced marketing agency can start off with some Google ads, some SEO, some website building, and things that are anyway very generic. And by the time you have your first 20-ish customers sorted, is when you should be looking to hire a marketing, full-time marketing director in your company. So at Slintel, we started off top down. We hired the marketing director first, and then the rest of the team was hired below him. But we took some time before we hired the marketing person, because we wanted to make sure that at least the first product market fit is realized before we start spending dollars. Because as soon as you hire your marketing director, you can't have a budget of like $2,000 per month of marketing spend, right? You need to have like a massive budget, because this marketing person will come up with ideas, but all of those ideas will be very expensive. So it's not about just hiring that marketing person. It's about having those budgets to, throw 50K on a website, and then throw 20K on a video that he wants to build, and then spend, so much on, the ads and so on and so forth, right? So no point hiring this person if you don't have the budgets for all of that. So I would suggest, you wait till your pre-series A round before you hire this marketing director persona, and before that you do it yourself, and you outsource an agency if need be to take care of some things. For the SMB side of things, Anand, so I come from a market which is SMB driven, so I can take that question. So mostly I think in SMBs it's all about velocity. You need to make sure that you're disqualifying sooner in your process. So if you realize that this customer will not be the right fit for you, don't try to set up trials for these guys. Don't get into multiple demos. Don't try to sell into the entire hierarchy. This person will give you only so much, and so you need to spend only so much time. Only then can the multiples make sense. So I think the one big learning from the SMB side of things that I have is that look at it from a velocity standpoint. Measure your AE's performance not on the total revenue that he's doing, but also on the sales cycle that he's churning for you. I'll read the question again though. 1 second. It has lost. Yeah. I'd like to know their take on addressing SMBs that are single proprietor led and not so structured or tech natives. So Anand, again, you need to find out where your customers are. I think Prakhar briefly touched upon identifying where your customers are. I think this is the time for us to go a little deeper into what he meant by that. So, once you understand your TAM and your ICP, the next thing is to realize where do these customers spend most amount of their time, right? Is it on LinkedIn? Is it on emails? Is there a community that they're a part of that I can go and, pitch my product? If it's an offline event, then you have to wait for offline events to come back, and then you can go to those events. Figure out where your customers are, and then you need to go there and then kind of spread that fishing net and see which ones come and start speaking to you. From a velocity standpoint, you can't crack it unless you have a like a rush of leads coming your way. With one lead in a week, you can't crack the SMB market, to be honest. So you need to look at it from a different perspective. You might want to do a freemium model in the beginning, might want to come up with a Chrome extension version, which is like a $99 per month, which then eventually becomes your driver for the $6,000 per year kind of transactions. A lot of things need to go there, but we'll have to understand the business a lot better. But I'm just throwing some random ideas around what we did to crack the SMB market. But there needs to be a lot of demand for you to be able to make sense out of the multipliers that will lead you to the 100, 200, 500K, $1 million, kind of revenue goals. With a one meeting per week kind of a setup, you definitely can't crack the SMB market. So you need to figure out how can I get 5 meetings in a day, kind of a run rate for yourselves to be able to justify the kind of expectation that your investors will have from you, once you start raising.
Makes sense. I think we've already started covering this, but basically the next thing was around building that immediate TAM, not targeting the entire TAM that you have, and then building a consistent pipeline out of it, so that you have some kind of a running engine now.
Yeah. So Prakhar, maybe you can go first.
Sure. Yeah. So I think see how this works is once you have identified the initial cohort that has started working for you in terms of the ideal customer profiles and the buyer profiles, you start expanding on that. You find similar companies as that, and see your TAM every quarter can keep on changing. Okay, it depends on how you look at the market, how you're continuously exploring. I'll give you an example. I think you'll relate better. So at Whatfix, when we started, we actually, I think the first investor deck that was presented 7-8 years back basically showed a TAM of a few $1 billion, a couple of $1 billion here and there maybe. And we were purely focused on startups. The problem that we were solving was sign up to conversion ratios and solving customer support queries. So that was the TAM for us. Then we realized that, okay, we could sell to enterprises. So then we added Salesforce as an ecosystem that could utilize our product. Our TAM automatically just bloated up to $10 billion. Then we realized that, hey, Workday was another one that we could sell to in terms of the HR softwares. Then we realized SAP was another one. Then we realized Microsoft is another one. Now, if you look at the entire enterprise world, today our TAM is about at least $40 billion. There are a couple of companies in the space who are $1 billion already. We are at $600 million, probably a unicorn already or in the path of getting there. So things change and your TAM continues to change depending on how you look at the market and how basically you are calculating it. Now, coming to a very myopic view and going granular on how you're able to address it, I think it's just about sticking to the basics. You don't need to worry a lot about TAM and don't need to worry about these massive numbers on what's going to happen 3 years later. See, in the early days, I very well remember in the early few months of business, it's all about survival. Forget TAM, forget some fancy metrics. It's about, okay, am I getting the salary next month or not? Am I basically able to last? What is my run rate ratio and for how long? And I think that's what one needs to focus on, that how do I acquire more customers, basically similar to what I have got, and continue to double down on that. That's what I would add and then pass it on to Anupreet.
So I'm also, kind of sending a link to our LinkedIn Chrome extension. Basically, that will help you, get some emails and phone numbers. It's absolutely free. I'm not trying to promote the product. It's our freemium product that you can definitely, download and use. And see, if you can get some initial emails and phone numbers from this alone and get started with your revenue engine with just this Chrome extension. pinged it in the chat. You guys can bookmark this or download the Chrome extension right away. So basically, from everything that we've covered around TAM and ICP, I think I don't need to go any further. We can probably use the time to spend, take some more questions, Rishabh.
Sure. Let's just cover one last thing before we just go deep into questions. Last thing would be, what's the right time for a founder to now delegate sales? Like, now it's self-functioning. Now the founder can actually leave it to maybe they can hire a VP of sales, sales director, or someone to head sales, and they can move out from it. What's the right time? Because a lot of people do go wrong with it.
Yeah, I try to briefly cover that. I would say again, once you've closed at least 5 to 10 cold prospects, even at a very small ticket size, that doesn't matter initially. But once you've closed a handful of cold prospects and you know what works, what doesn't, is probably the time when you can, hire that VP sales or a director sales persona. I would highly recommend that you don't hire a VP sales. And even, if the person is like absolutely gunning for that title of VP, you hold it back. The reason why I say that is because, once you cross that Series A, Series B stage, that same person might not be able to scale you up from, like, let's say $5 million to $50 million. And that's when you'll probably have to hire a new person to be that VP, for you, who knows how to do 5 to 50. And then if you already have a VP, it becomes very awkward. And then, you need to see who reports into who, or if you want to let go of that initial person, but you probably shouldn't, because this is the person who got you to the first $5 million mark. So basically, if you can hire people who don't really care about titles so much, that might be the right way to go about it. And, you can give them the director title or whatever. And then once you cross that stage of $5 million, you can see if this person can take you to the next growth phase, or do you need to hire a VP and have multiple directors in that function. But yeah, I mean, already covered the other part wherein, I think you should be closing some cold prospects at least before you can confidently offload the baton to, a VP sales kind of persona or a director of sales persona. Because again, you don't want to attribute your failure to some VP or some director and then, let go of him if it's not working out. And these guys come at a very expensive price point. So you want to justify, you'll have pressure on him from get-go, right? So might as well know what's going to work out for you in terms of, you should have some standards, right? That, hey, you know what, when I send 50 LinkedIn messages, I get 5 replies and 1 closes. Can you make it better? Right? You should have some kind of baseline. When I send, these 100 emails, I get these kind of, this is how my funnel looks like. Can you make this funnel any better? But when you don't even have like a funnel of any sort, right, then it's probably going to be unfair to evaluate the efficacy of that sales director. So Prakhar.
So I think, see, for me at the early stage, founders should try and sell as much as possible. Okay. There's no right or wrong. Some blogs will suggest that $100,000 ARR is the right time when you actually should delegate. Some people will say, no, even 50,000 is the right time. I don't think there is a right time. You can never realize, okay, this is the right time and I have to hire my first sales rep to transition the sales out from being a founder. Sometimes in enterprise sales, you continue to sell for quite long. The founder-led sales can actually go up to $500,000 with 2 people directly reporting to the founder as well. So it totally depends on how, it kind of works out. Overall, I think the message should be that as soon as you see that, okay, there's somebody or a couple of people in your team ready to take up that load or are able to sell on their own, that is the right time to probably start transitioning and having somebody who can actually create that playbook and now replicate that with more and more reps. Broadly, that is what I would say. Rest, I think Anupreet has covered a lot on this in detail.
Makes sense. At an early stage, let's cover the tech stack as well. What can they use in terms of tools to make their process efficient? One could be, of course, like you have already given Slintel's Chrome extension. That is, everyone could download that. Apart from that, what else can they use?
So I think there are some basics that you need to cover to get started, right? One is a LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You need that if your audience is on LinkedIn. Don't go for it if you don't have your majority of audience on LinkedIn. But if you're selling a sales tech tool or a marketing tech tool, these kind of personas are usually pretty active on LinkedIn. if you think you have some specific communities wherein your audience is usually pretty active, you might want to get some subscriptions or even sponsor a little bit in those communities. So these communities don't charge a lot for sponsorships. So you can probably keep some budget aside to, kind of create some noise in those communities as well. From a tech stack point of view, I think maybe an email automation system could also come handy. Because if you're running cadences, if you want to send automated emails, you might want to use some kind of email automation system. And then, a database kind of a provider, just putting it out there. Slintel is not the cheapest product out there. So just search for the one that fits into your budget, but till then use like freemium tools that are available. And once you think you're ready to, buy a more matured database platform, then probably you can look at ZoomInfo or Slintels of the world. But then there are tools that are much cheaper than that as well, somewhere in the ballpark of like $49 per month as well, that you can probably get started with. But then again, the problem with most of the tools is that your audience needs to have a market. So a lot of times you would realize that your market, your audience is in India, but the tool is good with US data. So while buying a data tool, make sure that the data tool has enough audience for your ICP. But yeah, I mean, from a tech stack point of view, from a sales tech stack point of view, I don't think you need a lot of tools in the beginning when you're like pre-revenue and all of that. But Prakhar, in your initial days, anything else that you purchased?
No, I think similar. And the biggest one that I would like to tell people is just get a CRM, get whatever CRM in place. Please don't. A lot of founders and startups basically end up managing stuff on spreadsheets for far too long. Even if you have to, you'll get a lot of free CRMs. Use Pipedrive. We used to use Pipedrive in the early days. It's a very good small business CRM for the early day companies. You can use Salesforce also, but then Salesforce is quite robust and will take more time. Probably not meant for very early days. You want something very simple. Pipedrive would fit the bill. Some of the others I think would be, one is don't worry so much about investing in tools in the early days. Like we rarely invested in anything. Probably 90% of the tools we used were free because the company would be so small with 2, 3, 4, 5 people that most of the tools will actually offer you that for free. So we used, I think, HubSpot's email automation system in the early days. That was free for us. Then we had Pipedrive that we were using. Then some of the others there were a lot of free extensions I used to use, like Rocket Bolt, etc. I don't remember Slintel was there back then in the early days.
It wasn't.
So then,
when you were in early days.
Yeah, we used to use Rocket Bolt, Rocket Reach. Sort of, there were so many free extensions that would give me that database information. Figure out those hacks. Like, one of the ways I used to figure out startup information is by going to AngelList and seeing who is the recent startup that has got funded in a particular geography. And then seeing, if the startup is only 50 people, then reaching out to founders directly, right? And that email address was very easy to find. There used to be a tool back then called Reportive that would help you find email addresses. Yes. LinkedIn Sales Navigator actually acquired it. I used to love that tool a lot.
They acquired it and killed it basically.
Killed it. Yeah, it was so awesome a tool.
They acquired to kill it basically.
Yeah, it was so awesome a tool. But yeah, I used to use that a lot. But yeah, mostly some of this, I think that would be enough in the early days. See, if you want, some of the free tools will also have recordings that will give you free recordings as well. Like you can use some of the Indian startups like Wingman, which basically will give you that conversational intelligence. Also, I think that's also free for a few users. So you can start with something like that. Again, must have CRM. I think that would be the must have. Email automation would be the second one. The rest you can live with. You can decide.
And there are some free CRMs. I'm not able to recall the name, but there's a CRM that, and maybe someone on the call might know the name, which just integrates with your Google Sheets. And you can just convert your Google Sheet into a CRM, basically, when you're using that. It starts with S. I'm not able to recall the name. Streak. Yeah, Streak. Right, Praveen. So, we were using Streak. We were that clumsy in the beginning, but then we moved from Streak directly to Salesforce. So, I would suggest you move to Salesforce before you hit like 25, 30 customers. Like as soon as you have money, buy Salesforce, because changing a CRM after your 200 customers is very difficult. So might as well change your CRM initially itself, but don't start with Salesforce, of course, because you need money to, buy those kind of products. So anyway, I think a lot of questions around pricing, Rishabh. So can we move to the pricing side of this?
Just one last thing, because now since we are near the time, so a lot of people will start dropping off now. So if you can just run an NPS poll to gather what's the pulse of the session. Feel free to give feedback, guys. It could be anything. It could be positive, negative. Everything is welcome. We can look at, maybe covering more in the next sessions that we do. So looking forward to get your feedback on the poll. And anyone, scoring less than 7, please do give us maybe DM. But yeah, we would like to know what all can be improved.
Absolutely not, Shivam. We'll not close without pricing. I don't have a hard stop. I can go on for another few minutes to make sure that we're covering pricing.
All right. Perfect. We have
I'll go first because I actually have a hard stop in 5 minutes. I can take that first once we're done with the poll.
Yeah, for sure.
Done. I guess if you guys can just finish answering the poll, everyone in the audience, we can look at closing it so that we can come to the pricing discussion. Yeah, I think we have the pulse. 43% at 10, 30% at 9. All right. Thanks everyone for the poll. And yeah, let's end it. Yeah. Prakhar, I think you can take the pricing question.
Great. I think one broad question in the comments is mainly around how to price your product. See, there are various ways you can actually go about it. If you read blogs about how to price a SaaS product, you'll find some general nuggets around go with a user-based pricing, go with a usage-based model, go with a license-based model, etc. I think one of the important pieces you got to understand is, again, if you're in a new category, you still have that power to drive it. But if you are in a rat race market or a crowded market, then a lot will be driven by how some of the other competitors are doing it already. So then it's still easy because you can actually, that path has been found for you by somebody else. And if it's user-based pricing, you go ahead with that. If it's usage-based pricing, you go ahead with that. You can be slightly different, but the only thing you'll have to do is just remember, if you're actually choosing a new path, back it up with a lot of data and insights and educational material, and train your reps to be able to better handle that. Because whenever you are being compared with your competition in that scenario, people will not be able to compare apples to apples. They would not be able to understand if your pricing is better or you're just probably more expensive. So again, I think that becomes very important to read the market a little bit. Then the second point is, it's a broad topic. We can actually discuss all the different ways. I mean, even SaaS companies who actually become billion-dollar products also worry about if they're pricing their product right, and then go to price consultants, etc. So there are many different ways you can go about it. But see, in SaaS, you would see few models in general. One is a platform-based fee that you charge as a subscription year on year. Second could be a user-based model on top of it, depending on how many users you have. That's a typical Salesforce model if you see. The third could be, you could have some recurring implementation fee. If your product is that expensive, if it is plug and play, then none of that comes into the picture. It's just, a user-based sort of a model. Second could be, if you are in a business of, something where it's more usage-based, you can actually price it on the usage-based. That's broadly, I would say, but it's such a broad topic. We can continue to discuss it and it'll take forever.
Yeah, there's actually the next playbook, or the session that we have planned is actually on SaaS pricing. So yeah, we can cover it right now, but yeah, we'll cover it in more depth going forward.
No, I'll just take two minutes to quickly, share my perspective on this as well. It's not very different from what Prakhar said, but the bottom line for pricing for you guys right now is that don't care about it a lot. I've again pinged another personality on the chat. I'm just giving you some nuggets on chats as well. So this guy was our mentor for Slintel in the very early stage. He's the founder of Jungli, which got acquired by Amazon in 1998. So he was in the acquisition game in 1998. He was probably a millionaire by 2001, 2000, right? So very, very down to earth guy, amazing guy. And I asked him this question when I was just starting up the sales for Slintel. And he told me that, the one thing that you shouldn't do with your pricing is that stop evolving it, with every deal actually, is what he told me. So he said that, let's say, with the last pricing, you capped yourself, and this is for the first, I would say 100 customers or first 75 customers, you don't figure out your pricing. So I think you will figure out the pricing eventually. For SMB or for enterprise, don't worry about pricing it right from the get-go. You can underquote and still win the deal. You can overquote and then lose a deal initially. It's totally fine. You will be able to find the balance. but don't be afraid to quote high, and don't be disappointed when you lose a deal because you underquoted and you won, because you still won, right? Along the way, when you're closing the first 25, 50, 75 logos, you'll figure out what is the right balance for you. And that is when you say that, hey, now I've cracked my pricing balance. Even Whatfix, for that matter, as Prakhar was mentioning, that, right? They started off with 6K. Right now, maybe they disqualify leads that are less than 15, 20K, at the SDR level. They don't even send them to their account executives, right? So, but they were averaging 6K, 7K in the beginning. So did Slintel, right? We started off, before I joined, the founder was of the opinion that they will sell $500 per month, the product. And when I joined, first thing I changed was that we will not do monthly. We will only do annual deals, right? So, and we don't, and right now we disqualify leads that want to pay monthly, or, want to have a monthly contract. So things change, things evolve with every iteration and every few customers that you add, right? So make sure that you're open to ideas, and don't stop yourself from hiring people. Don't stop yourself from challenging the status quo of your pricing, and keep increasing it. So let's say you've now closed a deal at 25K for the same value. Next time, be bold enough to pitch 50 and negotiate down and close it at 35. Next time, if you've closed it at 35, go and pitch at 60, 70, negotiate down and close it at 55, till you figure out what is the maximum value that this person is giving me for my product, right? And that's when you crack your pricing. And this will take a few iterations, and don't be, scared to, iterate till you get it. And it's not coming from me. I'm just using Ashish's words. And don't take me on my face value. I'm pretty young, but you can definitely trust Ashish on this. He's done it. He's been there, for a while now. So yeah, don't be bold enough to keep increasing your pricing. You deserve higher price points for your product.
Yeah. So in crux, pricing is just iterative in nature. It will take time. That's about it, right? So I know Prakhar needs to jump on the next call that he has. So first of all, Anupreet, can you stay back for the question that got coming in?
Absolutely.
All right, good. So we'll take another 10 to 15 minutes of yours. So Prakhar,
guys.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Prakhar, from everyone at Headstart for joining in. And you already see the appreciation coming in the chat. Thank you for sparing out this time. And yeah, look forward to doing more with you.
Thanks, Prakhar. See you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Take care, man.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Prakhar. All right, let's take a few questions from the chat. Okay, I'm trying to find questions in the chat right now.
I think we covered mostly everything. Pricing was the last thing that we missed covering.
Yeah, if there are any questions, everyone, you can feel free to drop them here in the chat. Anupreet can stay in for another 5 to 10 minutes, and we can look at answering those. Or if you would like to raise your hand and unmute yourself, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I think there was a question by Hamid that I couldn't answer.
All right, let's take that.
So if Hamid is still on the line, we can probably take that, and we can probably unmute him and take that way.
Yeah, Hamid, right? Hamid,
yeah, HAMID. Yeah.
Hamid, if you're on the call, he's on the call, but if you'd like to.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Well, first of all, Rishabh and the team, I would really appreciate for this webinar, and it was really helpful and cleared a lot of my doubts, and I hope other people doubts as well. So actually my question is, let me tell you about the stage where I am in right now in my startup. I'm building an applicant tracking system, and my target audience is the education market, the school, college, organizations basically. So right now I'm at a stage where the product is under development, and in a month the beta version will be out, and it will be for users to likewise. So right now I want to know, I want to first engage with people, because if I'm building a new brand and if people don't trust me, people don't know me, then they won't buy, because if they don't trust a brand, they don't just hop on it to buy. So I want to before the launch, I want to engage with the prospective clients, the people, the ideal customer profile, so that when the product is ready, I am able to pitch them the product so they can use it.
So you've answered your question in your question itself. So you basically said that you want to engage with your prospects before you pitch them to buy, and that is the answer to your question basically, right? So you can't, so it's called, so in the world of sales, right, there's something called a soft CTA and hard CTA. Soft CTA is that you're requesting someone something that is easier to accomplish. So for example, hey, download my ebook. Like I did a soft CTA with you guys. I said, hey, you know what, download my free Chrome extension. Right? It's easy for you, right? It's nothing, you didn't take anything from you just downloaded it. And let's say after your next 2 rounds of funding, you probably will buy Slintel someday as well. Just saying that I made a sale of a soft CTA. Similarly, your soft CTA is what you need to identify, and probably which is that you need to engage with your prospects right now. They don't trust you enough that they will buy you. But can they come on a webinar wherein you're calling some industry experts who are talking about that topic at large? Maybe yes, right? So you can get some industry expert, invite all of these people on a webinar. And if they don't even come on a webinar, you know that your brand is not even good enough for you to collect people for a free webinar wherein you're talking about a topic that will be helpful for them. So you need to do some more thought leadership. You need to build your LinkedIn presence. You need to build wherever your audience is. So in my case, my audience is on LinkedIn. So I need to build a LinkedIn presence for my brand and for myself. But if your audience is, let's say, on another platform, you need to make sure that you build some kind of credibility there, so that if not a paid project, they are at least coming in for listening to you guys when you're sharing some knowledge and maybe a free webinar of sorts, right? So that's what is the initial, I would say, dipstick in your scenario, that you need to engage with your community somehow, and then go one step at a time, and then asking for a sale will be the hardest CTA in this entire equation. CTA is call to action. So a soft CTA is what is that let's get you on a webinar. A hard CTA is that, hey, you need to buy from me. So see how you can kind of engage them with some soft CTAs to begin with, and build some kind of thought leadership content pieces around that, and then go towards the harder CTA.
Yeah, about the soft CTA, I had planned a few things. Means it is in the work in progress. So about the webinar that you are saying. So as it is the education market, I planned that we will do a summit, an education summit, because my ideal customer profile are the school leaders. So a leader summit would be there. Yep. And so I have planned it, and I have even listed down the the list of guest speakers and all education leaders. So I think that what you are saying, even about the ebook, I even thought that I should be making some content for free for them, so they can at least sign up or fill in their details. At least I will get some leads, prospective leads who need some similar things, and I can then pitch to them.
Correct. Yeah, that's the right way to go.
I know that I am giving my own answers, but from a leader like you, I have the clarity now. I am on the right path. What I am planning, I am on the right path, and I will be able to get my early customers if I put my full efforts in these strategies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Great. Do we have more questions, Rishabh? I see some people have raised their hands.
Yeah, 2 people had raised the hand. Yeah. If I can see. Okay, one is Encamp Ratan, and there's Aswin from Dispak.
Yeah, hi, Anupreet. I just have a quick question. So we are, we're developing this SaaS, climate tech product. My question is, who in the organization should we be reaching out to? Ideally, if we are looking for a, free pilot, basically, we're just not transactional. Just we want to pilot with these companies. The likes of, we're talking about the likes of, say the likes of Make My Trip, Yatra, Trilophilia, those kind of companies. So who in the organization should we be looking at for a climate tech solution?
So my expertise is not in the climate tech side of things, so I wouldn't know who is the buyer. But I think because you're building it, you will be in a better position to understand who's the end user. So you need to ask those questions to yourself, that hey, who is this benefiting in the org? Is it, let's say, benefiting the the finance team? Is it saving some money for them? If the answer to that is yes, then it's probably the finance team. Is it helping them book some more revenue? If yes, then it's probably the sales team. Is it helping them get better at compliance? Because you said climate tech, so I'm just guessing it might be something to do with compliance or something of that sort. And it's probably the compliance team or legal team. So I don't understand the product very well, not the industry. So I wouldn't know who's the right persona to buy your product, but you need to ask these questions to yourself, that who are you solving this for? And then eventually land onto that person's profile on LinkedIn, and then validate if this person will be excited about your pitch or not.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anupreet. I got my answer.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect. Aswin, if you could just unmute.
Yeah, sure.
So hey Anupreet, so my product is like under $1,000 ACV, ranges between like $400 to $1,000 ACV customers. So what I wanted to ask is, so we are in a very early stage. So is it okay to like cold call if we haven't like fully started our marketing and we don't have like 5 or 10 leads signing up every day? We have like 1 or 2 leads every week, just as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So like until then, is it okay to like do sales, like call people who signed up for SME type of?
What is the market that you want to reach out to? Is it India? Is it US? Is it?
No, it's US. It's like software development companies. My product is a development tool which probably saves time for like QA and developers.
And how did you price the product between 400 to 1,000? What is the
so it's like $50 per month and like $75 per month.
So are you saying that your competitor is at that price range and that's why you're in that price range?
Yes.
So I'm sure your competitor follows a product-led growth, right, and not a sales-led growth.
Yeah. No. At least in the early stage, is it okay to call people and like
it's? I mean, honestly, I am a firm believer of the fact that even in the early stage, you should try to crack the market the way you'd want to crack it when you scale it up. Because otherwise, even after you close the first 25, 30 customers through cold calling, you will not scale up cold calling. So there's a lot of effort that takes. So if I tell you to start closing customers through cold calling, I'm actually setting you up for a 10-hour to 20-hour worth of job to just write that script, and then probably hundreds of hours of calls that will be made by your reps, which may or may not be successful. So I would say that to a person who will scale up the cold calling after that to an extent that the first $10 million are coming through cold calling. But in your case, that's not the case. So I would suggest you figure out other ways, by which I mean you need to be marketing focused a lot. You need to market a lot more than you're actually selling, because eventually it will become a PLG, and people will buy it through some links that they'll see here or there, or some if you integrate with some other tools, then in that marketplace you should make a lot of noise. So you should accelerate your product growth and your marketing growth and your integrations, and your you should be present in all the communities that your competitor is present in. So try to do an apples to apples comparison of where is this competitor getting most number of customers from, and try to prioritize how to reach there, as against trying to build a cold calling team around you, because that will not be the most scalable way to close like a $400 to $1,000 ACV product.
Also, I saw in a comment that like no time is enough for like trial period for any customers. So like right now we have like usage based trials, so we are like free for up to certain limit, and we don't stop by like certain number of days. So should we like I have a like thought that is like, instead of having 14-day free trial, we are giving like unlimited number of days. So is it a problem?
No, I don't see that as a problem, especially in your setup. So we also have a Chrome extension that I shared, right? That is a usage based a product. It's not based on any timeline. The reason why we do that is because sometimes so our motion with the Chrome extension is product led. We don't want to do sales with that. When you have to have a sales led motion is when you need to have a timeline focus on it, that hey, what, my salesperson is involved, I don't want him to be involved for more than 1 week or more than 5 days on this particular deal. But when it's a PLG, then you don't mind this customer coming and paying you after 1 year also, because you're not really actively engaging your time. He's a passive customer of yours. So whenever he's ready, he will probably buy, right? In that case. And so for example, Zoom is also an excellent example. They give you 45 minutes free forever, right? But the day you need 46th minute is when you will have to pay them. And as soon as you have like a company that has multiple meetings, and some meetings are into 1 hour, you will need their product, right? So you need to think of it that way, that a PLG does not require a time-based trial, but a sales-led motion absolutely requires a time-based trial, because you have a human involved during that trial with this person.
Understood. Yeah, thank you for answers.
Right. We can just take our last question for the day from Creative Bricks. Okay, it's just, I think, the startup name. Creative Bricks, if you want to take your question, you can unmute right now, or you can mention it in the chat. All right. Okay. I don't think,
cold callings are important, or just call with full details background of your customers? That's the question that Creative Bricks is asked. Or just call with full details of your customer. So are you saying cold call like at like blitz call, which is like calling 100 people in a day versus calling 10 people but with a lot of background? What is better? Is that your question? Okay, so you want to know whether we should be calling 100 people per day or not? Or was that a statement? Can you unmute yourself? Because to make 100 cold calls, you have to first speak. Let's talk. Okay, so the answer is yes. So I think Creative Bricks, and also if you can tell your name. Anyway, so basically, you know what? I think cold calling is important when you think that will become your growth motion from there on. That's what I tried to explain in the previous session as well. But cold calling can also be like a lot of disappointment for reps if they're not doing it right. So make sure that you're getting the right person to do cold calls. If you are doing it yourself, make sure that you practice a lot. It's a very difficult skill to master. Honestly, I have not been able to master it myself, but I have some people in my team that are great at it and are able to generate like a couple meetings every day from just cold calling. Also audience, right? I mean, if you have an India focused market, 100 calls might not be enough for you to generate like enough B2B business. If you're in B2C, then it's fine. I don't know much about B2C, but in B2B, like because we get a lot of spam calls, right? In India, a lot of people would ignore your calls, or as soon as you start your pitch, they will drop your call. So in India, cold calling, I have not seen working in B2B setups in India a lot. But if you're doing that in US, it's worth it because those two customers can also be high paying customers, and it's going to be interesting. You're in B2B construction management and site tracking business. And is it India or US? India. So I would suggest you probably, you can start with cold calling, but have like low expectations. So out of the 100 dials, if you're able to set up one meeting in a day, that will also be a great accomplishment to begin with, and then try to refine that pitch eventually and see how you can be creative with your pitch and be, slightly more engaging in your conversations than a regular cold calling script. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely try that route because your people in the construction management and site tracking are not anywhere else. They're not active on emails. They're not active on LinkedIn. So cold calling is probably the only way for you to reach out to, cold prospects. Praveen, if your audience is on LinkedIn, then it's very important. Very, very important. Most important if your audience is on LinkedIn. If your audience is not on LinkedIn, then it is still important, but not most important because your investors will still look at your LinkedIn profile before they, invest into you. So you need to have a LinkedIn presence regardless. But if your audience, your customers are on LinkedIn, then you have to be super active on LinkedIn.
All right. I guess we have answered all the questions that people had. I see. Okay. Thanks a lot, Anupreet, for taking this time, and in fact, extending it also, and also helping us curate the agenda for the session.
Sure.
Can't thank you enough for all the contribution from all of us at Headstart. We would love to do more. We'd love to involve you more and do more things. But yeah, if time permits, if your calendar permits that, we would love
Sure.
to work with you more around.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and all the best to all the founders who kickstarting this. I'll be happy to keep in touch. You can add me on LinkedIn, and if you have any other questions, I'll try to answer them to the extent possible. If it's in my territory, I'll try to answer those questions on LinkedIn as well. So please feel free to ask any additional questions that you still might have on LinkedIn. Thanks a lot, guys. All the best. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Anupreet. For anyone looking to join the SaaS Club, this is a bit.ly link, which you can just go and apply on. It's a curated community on WhatsApp where we can just add you there. And yeah, you can take it ahead. Right now, we are running ahead of time. But yeah, happy to connect individually and help you with more understanding on what we are doing with the SaaS Club.